June 4, 1942, dawn breaks over the Central Pacific as waves of Japanese aircraft thunder toward Midway Atoll, 4 aircraft carriers bristling with fighters and bombers. Admiral Yamamoto's entire strike force, 165 warships strong, racing to finish what Pearl Harbor started. Total annihilation of American naval power in the Pacific. But let's change one thing. Cutting through the waves at impossible speed sits something that shouldn't exist for another 49 years. The USS Michael Monsoor, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer from 2019, armed with enough firepower to level a small country and radar systems that can count the rivets on enemy aircraft from 200 miles away. So what happens when 69 years of naval evolution faces off against the Imperial Japanese Navy at their absolute peak? This isn't your great-grandfather's tin can destroyer. The USS Michael Monsoor is 510 feet of pure technological terror that looks like it was designed by engineers who hate fair fights. This floating supercomputer displaces 9,200 tons and packs more firepower than entire World War II battle groups. Here's what this maritime nightmare is carrying: 96 vertical launch system cells loaded with enough guided death to delete aircraft carriers from existence. We're talking Standard Missile 6 interceptors that can swat planes out of the sky from 250 miles away. That's farther than most 1942 aircraft can even fly. Tomahawk cruise missiles with 1,000-mile range that can thread the needle through a porthole and explode exactly where you pray they won't. But wait, there's more. A 5-inch Mark 45 naval gun that fires GPS-guided shells with pinpoint accuracy out to 13 miles, close-in weapon systems that spit out 4,500 rounds per minute for anything foolish enough to get close, and electronic warfare systems that can jam every Japanese radio frequency simultaneously while playing your favorite playlist. The ship's brain is an SPY, 1D phased array radar that can track over 100 targets while calculating their favorite breakfast cereal. It sees everything, tracks everything, and can guide missiles to hit a baseball, traveling at Mach 2. Powered by 4 General Electric gas turbines pushing 100,000 horsepower, this destroyer can outrun most 1942 cruisers while making less noise than a whisper. In 1942, this thing is essentially a time-traveling death machine operated by technological wizards. But Admiral Yamamoto didn't sail halfway across the Pacific to mess around. He brought the crown jewels of the Imperial Japanese Navy, 4 fleet carriers that turned Pearl Harbor into scrap metal 6 months ago. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. Floating airports packed with 272 of Japan's most experienced pilots, flying Zeros, Kates, and Vals. These aren't weekend warriors. They're battle-tested aviators, fresh off conquering half the Pacific Ocean. Their Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters are fast, agile, and flown by pilots who've been perfecting aerial combat since the mid-1930s. Each plane represents thousands of hours of training and real combat experience. Supporting this aerial armada are battleships, heavy cruisers, and destroyers, over 160 warships total. The mighty battleship Yamato lurks in the distance, armed with 18.1-inch guns that can lob shells the size of compact cars over 25 miles. But here's the thing, these ships fight like it's 1942, probably because it is 1942. We're talking optical range-finding, primitive radar that can barely spot surface ships, and manual fire control systems. Their longest range weapons might reach 25 miles on a perfect day with a tailwind and divine intervention. The Michael Monsoor can kill them from the next time zone. At 0430 hours, the first wave of Japanese aircraft lifts off from their carriers, 108 planes strong, flying in perfect formation, confident in their numerical superiority and combat experience. They're heading for Midway Atoll, expecting to crush American resistance in a matter of hours. 150 miles away, the destroyer's SPY-1D radar lights them up like fireworks on the 4th of July. The ship's Aegis combat system processes the threat in microseconds. The result, the most one-sided turkey shoot in naval history. The Japanese pilots have no idea they're about to become statistics in a very depressing spreadsheet. The first SM-6 missile streaks into the dawn sky at Mach 3.5, then another and another. These aren't the crude rockets of 1942. They're fire-and-forget guided munitions that think faster than quantum computers and hit harder than divine judgment. 1 second, the Japanese formation is pristine, facing an empty horizon. The next second, state-of-the-art Mitsubishi fighters turn into clouds of aluminum confetti for no apparent reason. The enemy seems invisible, but in reality is simply shooting from so far away they have to account for the Earth's rotation. For a Japanese pilot, this is absolutely terrifying. Panic spreads through the formation like wildfire in an ammunition depot. Veteran aviators bank desperately, searching for the invisible threat. Some dive toward the water, others climb for altitude. The disciplined attack formation dissolves into chaos. Meanwhile, the Michael Monsoor tracks every single aircraft while calmly launching more missiles. Its computer brain doesn't hesitate, doesn't miss, and definitely doesn't feel bad about it. To the destroyer, hand-delivering trained fighter pilots to their ancestors is just another Tuesday morning. By the time the survivors reach Midway, and that's assuming the floating apocalypse is feeling generous, about half the attack force has mysteriously vanished. The remainder drops their bombs haphazardly before fleeing back toward their carriers, reporting impossible losses to targets they never saw. Admiral Nagumo, aboard the carrier Akagi, receives the survivors' reports with growing alarm. Mass hallucination sounds crazy until exactly 0 of the missing planes return from their unscheduled meeting with eternity. He orders the second wave launched immediately. 170 more aircraft racing toward what they think is just Midway Atoll. Terrible decision. The Michael Monsoor has repositioned, its stealth capabilities making it invisible to 1942 eyes and primitive radar. The destroyer's crew watches the incoming formation on their screens like it's the world's most expensive video game, because to them, it basically is. More SM-6 missiles shriek skyward. Japanese Zeros, the terror of the Pacific, disintegrate like paper airplanes in a hurricane. Kate torpedo bombers loaded with ordnance for ship attacks become flying fireballs before they even know they're under attack. The psychological effect is devastating. Veteran pilots who've dominated every sky they've flown suddenly find themselves helpless against an enemy they can't see, can't fight, and definitely can't beat. With the air threat neutralized, the Michael Monsoor goes on the offensive. Its Tomahawk cruise missiles don't need direct line of sight. They can fly over 1,000 miles, navigate around obstacles, and arrive exactly where they're least welcome. The destroyer launches a salvo of Tomahawks toward the Japanese carrier force's last known position. These missiles streak across the ocean at 550 miles per hour, hugging the waves at 50 feet altitude, invisible to radar systems that won't be invented for decades. Akagi's lookouts spot what looks like a small, fast aircraft approaching low and level. Too late, the Tomahawk's 1,000-pound warhead detonates against the carrier's side, punching through steel plating and igniting aviation fuel stores. The ship that helped destroy Pearl Harbor erupts in flames. Kaga suffers the same fate. Then, Soryu, the missiles arrive without warning, guided by computers more advanced than anything 1942 can imagine. Each hit is devastating, precise, and absolutely But even lethal. Technological gods have limits. The Michael Monsoor carries 96 missiles total. Impressive, but finite. After destroying aircraft and crippling carriers, its magazines start running low. More critically, it's fighting in 1942, where there are no GPS satellites to guide its weapons, no data links to coordinate with other units, and no spare parts. The crew has to rely on the ship's onboard sensors and their training, praying nothing breaks down too soon. And there's still the Japanese submarine threat. I-168 lurks somewhere beneath the waves, armed with Type 95 torpedoes. A single lucky shot could cripple even the Michael Monsoor. While the destroyer is invisible to 1942 radar, to a periscope, it's a very large and tempting target. The ship's sonar gives it a huge advantage in submarine hunting, but submarines are patient predators. One mistake, One moment of inattention, and the future's most advanced warship could join Davy Jones's exclusive club. When the smoke clears, assuming I-168 gets spotted and dealt with, the Battle of Midway has become the most lopsided naval victory in human history. 4 Japanese fleet carriers are sunk or sinking. Hundreds of irreplaceable pilots are gone. Japan's offensive capability in the Pacific is annihilated in a single morning. American losses, you could count them on one hand while eating a sandwich. The destroyer would be remembered as the ghost of Midway. 49 years of naval advancement that compressed Japan's defeat from years into hours. The war in the Pacific, which historically lasted until August 1945, might end before 1943. Could one modern destroyer change the course of World War II? Absolutely. Technology is force multiplication, and the Michael Monsoor represents nearly half a century of accumulated naval warfare evolution. But wars aren't won by single ships. They're won by logistics, production, and the will to fight. The destroyer would just make sure that will wasn't wasted against impossible odds. If you enjoyed this 3 a.m. thoughts experiment about rewriting naval history, make sure to subscribe for more scenarios where modern warfare meets the past. Thanks for watching.